Have you ever seen a historian that you're better than? I mean, a historian that knows absolutely nothing. You know, the internet is full of people who claim things that they are not, or even if they are just bad at their job. They don't know their job, they don't know anything, and sometimes it can be intentionally wrong information or maliciously twisted to push a particular narrative. So here we are today. We have someone that claims to be a historian and doesn't know anything.
There is nothing like Igbophobia amongst Akwa Ibomites. There is absolutely nothing like Igbophobia. An average Akwa Ibom person does not have phobia for Igbo people, are not afraid of Igbo people. Go all over social media. You will see evidence of this everywhere. And I'm making this video to address something that I saw one of my fellow, historians saying here on TikTok, that Akwa Ibomites have Igbophobia or are joining the Igbophobia narrative. Akwa Ibomites have never been known to have Igbophobia for their Igbo brothers. You will see so many of our ladies on social media saying how they would love to marry an Igbo man. You'd see so many of our men on social media saying how they would love to marry an Igbo woman. Personally, I have 80% of my friends to be Easterners, to be Igbo people, male and female. And so an average Akwa Ibom person opens their hands to the Easterners. But can we in all honesty say the same thing as well for our Eastern brothers? Can we say the same? Because it seems like it is only when this Biafran subject is brought on board that our Igbo brothers most always remember that there is a group of people called Akwa Ibom. But you always forget that the Akwa Ibom people in the whole of the South have always been those group of people that have always supported the Southeast, no matter what. Let me take you a little bit down memory lane. When we were still in the Eastern Protectorate, Northern Protectorate, when Nigeria was still operating by protectorate, the capital of Nigeria was in where? Was in Calabar.
First of all, there's nothing like Eastern Protectorate, Northern Protectorate, and Western Protectorate and Southern Protectorate. The place we know today as Nigeria didn't exist then, when there were still protectorates. They only existed the northern part of the British colonial administration and the southern part of the British colonial administration. The northern part had its own capital city, the seat of administration. The southern part had its own seat of administration. There was nothing like Nigeria then.
The capital of Nigeria was in Calabar. Today now they are saying that Calabar was not the capital but was the capital of the Eastern Protectorate. Now you tell me how Calabar was the capital of just the Eastern Protectorate and yet it was moved from the east to the west. And you are saying that if Calabar was the capital of the Eastern Protectorate, what of the Western Protectorate? Did they have a capital as well?
No, the Western Protectorate didn't have a capital because it was also considered as the Southern Protectorate. The entire Western region was also considered as a part of the Southern Protectorate.
Okay. Now, this is not my point, and this is not what I'm even going to. What I'm saying is this: the person responsible for moving the capital of Nigeria, whether there was a capital, whether it was in the Eastern Protectorate, whether it was not in Nigeria, at least we all know that at a point in time in our history, the beginning of our independence, that Calabar was the seat of administration. So we all know these things. But who is the person that moved it from the Calabar region to the west? It was Nnamdi Azikiwe. That was the person that did that, an Igbo man from the east.
Now, this is the core part of our video. This is what she wants to push out. This is the narrative that she's interested in pushing out. It's an Igbo man that moved the capital city from Calabar to Lagos. In other words, the Igbo man is always a malicious, evil devil incarnate that doesn't deserve to interact with regular, normal human beings. That's the message. And it's quite sad. It's quite sad that people like this have a platform and they are able to give out information. I mean, I'm all for freedom of speech, but people like this should be able to be challenged all the time, especially by kids, people that also doesn't know anything, and they'll just be exchanging banters. That's what she deserves. Because how do you, as a historian, claim that a 2-year-old Nnamdi Azikiwe was the one that moved the capital of the Southern Protectorate from Calabar to Lagos? How do you explain that to me? The Southern Protectorate was created in 1900 and it was moved in 1906. Azikiwe was born in 1904. This is basic history. I expect if someone claims to be a historian, the amalgamation of Nigeria, the sequence of events that happened towards the amalgamation of the Northern and Southern Protectorates of Nigeria should not be confusing to you. I expect you to understand it from the core. I'm not a historian. A historian that doesn't know that the amalgamation of Nigeria was the official event where Nigeria was officially created in 1914. A historian that doesn't know this is like a doctor that doesn't know that paracetamol is for headache. What do you know then if you don't know basic stuff? What do you know? You probably know the history of the ancient Greek. You'll be giving us history about Vikings, but we all understand the gimmicks. It's all about the Igbos. The Igbos are malicious. They are not worth interacting with. Looking at people like this, there are two options that you have to have in mind. Either they are what they claim to be and intentionally, maliciously decided to twist the facts, or they are completely ignorant. And looking at her face, I think she's a complete goof. She doesn't know anything. She doesn't know what she's saying. I think she's sponsored, but she's also a sponsored. She doesn't know anything.
Because I cannot understand why you would move the capital, the seat of commerce, from Calabar, that was the place that had a seaport that would have helped other Easterners living around that area. As we all know, that the Igbos are very versatile when it comes to trade. Who was the person that moved it? The capital did not stay up to 7 years in Calabar. Go and check your online history, at least the one they documented. The capital did not stay up to 7 years in Calabar. It was moved. It was moved to the west, and it stayed in the west for more than 20 years. Today, a lot of people always like to say that Lagos is a commercial center, that is why Lagos is thriving, when we all know that this has always been political. You cannot have the capital of a nation in a place and that place would not experience development. So who moved it there? Nnamdi Azikiwe. Before anything, Biafra came into the picture. The first declaration for a state of its own was the Ibibio Union. And that goes on to tell you that the Ibibio people in Cross River then knew very well what having their own indigenous community would do for them. And so the first people that even talked about seceding from this country was the Niger Delta. Before Biafra came into the picture, it was the Niger Delta. But that was overturned by Ojuku's government. And in a very short space of time, Biafra was declared. Now, after Biafra was declared, good and fine, a lot of South people rallied together to support Biafra. Effiong, the second in command of Ojuku, of that movement, of that Biafra movement, was an Ibibio man. He was an Ibibio man then, living in Old Cross River before the separation of Cross River and Akwa Ibom. So Akwa Ibomites have always been very supportive of this Biafran movement. But quite recently, as I read Chimamanda's book, I saw a place in that book where she said, "And Calabar never fell." She talked about how the other South states contributed to the success of Biafra in her book called Half of a Yellow Sun. But in one sentence, she said, "And Calabar never fell." I am a writer and I understand when a writer doesn't want to talk so much on a subject matter. And she's saying, "And Calabar fell," and Calabar never fell in her story, connotes that Calabar never bared the brunt of that movement.
She's also a writer. If you could lie that you're a historian, why should I believe that you're also a writer?